Welcome to today's episode of the Indoencers Podcast. Our guest today is an incredible singer-songwriter who has received public admiration and plaudits from some of India's biggest musical names, including Vishal Dadlani, Ehsan Noorani, Benny Dayal, Jonita Gandhi, among countless others. And she was also the winner of the VYRL Cover Star Contest. Her first two original compositions, titled July 19 and Home, have both been received with extremely positive reviews from leading publications like Rolling Stone India, and they have served as incredibly intimate vehicles through which she has shared her own personal stories. To talk more about her journey thus far, I'm very excited to be speaking to multi-instrumentalist and singer-songwriter Shweta Srivastava. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast.
Hey, no, it's completely my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
No problem. It's my pleasure indeed. So we'll start off with a topic that I often start off with and have kind of tried to stray away for reasons you'll understand in a second, but I kind of feel compelled to start there. So for viewers who are tired of me starting here, I apologize. But the reason I want to start with this topic is because it connects with an interview you gave with the Hindustan Times. And the topic that I'm referring to is COVID's impact on your life as a musician. And you said in that interview that COVID helped you build proximity with the viewers. But with COVID, which has made us more physically distant, how do you think COVID brought you closer to your audience?
See, if you see from a singer point of view or even from a songwriter point of view, right? Apart from the fact that gigging was something that was extremely intimate and physical, the rest has to do with, your listening and connection. I think because of the social media that was extremely, extremely active, that listening was very effective. And that is exactly how more connections were built. I mean, even if you pick a scenario where you are gigging, come with their own, people, and a lot of people they might be hearing you, but they might not be listening to you. So that aspect was really, really well opened and well received in the pandemic situation because everything was shut. So nobody had anything to do.
You're absolutely right with that. And when you say that people were listening instead of hearing, do you think that's a direct consequence of, staying at home and all that as well?
Of course, definitely. I mean, the social animal, as we call ourselves, right? You would get tired of listening to some of the things that you're used to. Also, a lot of the things, the ones that are, more upbeat, the ones that make you groove, do lack a sensible or an intelligent form of music somewhere, at least in the recent scenario is what I believe. So when you're in the club, you will groove to it. But will you continue to do that when you're at home? And everybody probably thought, no, I want to listen to songs like Pratik Kuhar that make sense to me when I'm in my thoughts, when I'm reading a book, or when I'm doing something, having an intimate cup of coffee with just my own intimate thoughts. I want those things to be supplemented with good taste of music. And that is, I think, opened a lot of, avenues for people who were, a little hesitant or were struggling at the start of it. But people went full blown bazunga on it.
So you talk about how, the listeners' kind of listening habits may have changed because we weren't as social in general. Do you find that to be true for yourself? Did you consciously realize that your listening habits were changing in any way?
I mean, again, I think I will not be the right sample size for your question because I am a musician and I am a singer-songwriter. I like to personally, explore a lot of music. Of course, I was spending a lot of time with myself. What happened to me was I stopped listening to a lot of music from others, but I started listening to a lot of music that I was making. So my also hearing pattern and listening pattern changed, but that was a very different perspective of how it changed for me. Otherwise, if I were not a singer-songwriter and I was a person who would, I mean, generally, apart from that side of mine, I enjoy music when I'm traveling. So that did affect me to some extent. But the flip happened for me.
Yeah, and it was post-pandemic where you started really, full on producing your songs and putting them out. So was it like engaging with your tracks more intimately as you did during lockdown? Did that kind of pave the way for turning your compositions into full-fledged productions?
Absolutely. I mean, the way I am calling myself a singer-songwriter out there, it was not the same, Nishad, at the start of the pandemic. And not because I was not confident about my skill, it was just, how music and especially songs that we are putting out, they're so personal to us, right? And want to always have a comfortable space to not necessarily sharing it with the entire world is something that is the first or the instant thought in our heads. Given the fact that social media was so closely interacting with our personal lives, I was going on Instagram lives at night and the day whenever I was finding time. And it did create a sort of a safe space for me to be able to share my music. And I remember nights when I've gone live with about 15 people, just 15 people at 4 a.m. And I told them, guys, I have written this hook, not even a proper song. I have written this hook. What do you think about it?
Almost like a feedback session.
Yeah. And when the response was so positive, I just felt very, very confident that yes, I need to put out my music. And even if there are, the way that I've started to look at things at the moment is like, so my recent single, Home, it just released on the 23rd of March, right? So it's about 1.5 month at the moment. And I have approximately 5,000 streams on Spotify
Correct.
alone, right? Is it a good number? Is it a bad number? Does it need to do better? I don't know. But imagine if I was in one room with 5,000 people listening to my song, I would be blown away. So yeah, I mean that's the kind of effect that pandemic had, and it's continued to affect the music journey, at least for me.
So let's go away from the present. And what I like to do on this podcast is go back all the way and kind of go on the journey that you've been on throughout your life and see
Mm-hmm.
how you got to where you are today. So let's
Mm-hmm.
go back to the very, very beginning and a very basic question, but what is your
Okay.
first musical memory?
So I remember, I think I was freshly out of kindergarten and in class standard one. And back in the days, I used to dance a lot. Like as kids, we just were thrown into anything and everything, honestly. But my was close to me for some reason, even in that age. And just for her entertainment, she pushed me onto the stage and she said, "We're not dancing today. Can you just sing for us?" And I was like, what? And I was so conscious, and I was this tiny little kid on the stage, and this is the assembly that I'm talking of. And then the only song that I knew at that point of time was Shah Rukh Khan's "मैं कोई ऐसा गीत गाऊं कि आरज़ू जगाऊं अगर तुम कहो." And I was in a position where I'm just escaping a sting bee or something by being in only one position, and I'm singing this nice happy song.
How were you feeling? I mean, I don't know if you remember, but like, did you kind of embrace people watching you, or was it like full on
No.
nervousness, fear?
No, I don't. I did not enjoy that. Only because I was not asked to do that. I was forced to do that.
Yeah, I mean that's 100% like what I would feel as well. But once in a while you'll get musicians who are like, I love the stage from day one, and just like, how?
I completely, at least at that age, I mean, kudos to kids who are doing it today, but at that age, I was like, I can't do it. I don't want to do it. But luckily enough, I mean, because of that, so till then I only had exposure to, my dance teacher. And I think because of that day, my music teacher also sort of probably saw some potential,
Oh,
because
wow.
the only kind of music that I've done with somebody was, during my school age. So the kind of formative years that I've spent at school listening to different kind of music, performing different kind of music because we were told to do so, that was very important in my journey personally because I'm self-taught. Big ups to that day.
So,
Yes.
you were talking about how you were exposed to different kinds of music and you have to perform different kinds of music. What exactly do you mean by this? Like, what sort of genres were you listening to and were you
Mhm.
performing?
Oh, plenty. So, okay, it's a great mix of so many things. I am originally from Lucknow, okay? Lucknow it in itself is a culturally very rich city. So there are so many flavors that, keep coming up to you in form of audio, video, different movies. Of course, there was Bollywood. Of course, there was, my parents have been a major influence in my life. My parents actually have been singers. They would like to perform also. They would like to play certain instruments. And that's how, there was always a culture of music and art at home. So that was a really, really good bet for me. I stepped into school. Of course, it was very, comprehensive in the manner that, okay, there is this competition which is strictly classical. So we prepare something that's nice, devotional maybe, sometimes patriot also. Sometimes if we want to, stand out in a scenario where you're supposed to do non-filmy songs, then what do? Then I remember I'm the first person to start Sufi songs at that point of time, to start singing and performing. And given the voice texture I had, it was extremely well received. So that was a different way, a little away from classical, semi-classical still, but, projection and how.
Right, right.
So that was one way. My music teacher was Catholic, and he always used to listen to a lot of English music, and he also used to, make us listen to and prepare and sing, even if it is Christmas carols or if it is some sort of competition or something. I remember there was this event where we used to go frequently every year, and it was such a good event where you had to compose a piece of literature in your own way. So naturally, my music teacher and I would do that together, and it used to be a duet. So interestingly, the concepts of harmonies, the concepts of how do you sound together, when do you want volume together and that impact together, when do you want to split your and open your canvas bright. I was not formally taught all of that, but I was exposed to a lot of that very
Mm.
early. And it's actually funny still date, I design vocals for a lot of musicians these days. Okay, so I tell them how can they, as I said, brighten their and broaden their canvas by singing multiple notes. How do you harmonize? How do you counter melodies and all of that?
Yeah.
And if somebody asks me, "Oh, how did you come up with that?" My answer is, I don't know. It just sounds right.
That's wonderful. Wait, so is that kind of your approach till date when you're approaching harmonies? Like, is it more experimental than theoretical?
Yeah, yeah, it actually is. Of course, I mean, and even today when I do speak with people, who are extremely strong at their theory, the concept that they apply is also the same.
Mm.
Their approach is to widen the sound of whatever we're doing, right? Whether it's a chorus, whether it's highlighting certain sections. So when you're doing that, you would take the help of the theory notes, of
Right.
course. But how do you get fresh sounds? Then you will get experimental with whatever you know.
Yeah.
And whether I know the theory or not, it's all about experiments at the end of the day.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's a great answer. And speaking of experimentation, that's kind of how you learned to play some of your instruments, if I'm correct. So when did this journey of self-learning and experimenting with instruments start for you?
Oh, it it the seed was there very early, because when I used to see my music teacher play, and he was a pianist, and I used to go gaga over the way he used to play, I used to think, and as basic as, one day I will know how to play a chord. One day I will go ahead and play. You remember that ad from Airtel by A.R. Rahman?
Oh,
Na,
yeah,
na, na,
yeah.
na, 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 na.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
one
yeah.
day I will play that, and they were so like tiny parts, but they were always there. I mean, I'm just so it's it's really nice to think about all of these things today, because that's how, when one step at a time. Then I bought a keyboard, then I then I YouTubed so much, and then eventually today, when I'm writing my own songs on those few chords, it just feels so good.
So when you're experimenting with instruments, the thing is, when I've learned instruments, I've always been taught. So I don't have that
Mhm.
perspective of what it's like to self-learn an instrument. So is it about, was it more like online, learning on YouTube, or was it about sounds that you had in your head that you were just trying to put into practice? How exactly did you go about
Yeah.
this self-learning
I
journey?
think it was a blend of this along with imitation.
Mm.
So when you hear something and then you want to imitate it, and then when you play it on the piano, then you change the sound to a different, maybe a harp or maybe a bass or maybe a guitar, then the sound changes. So it's just like so much of new things, so many new things that you're experimenting with. It just changes like that. And given the fact that I never boxed myself into something, so that helped me, I think, remain hungry for it, because even today, if I hear a song which is like a pasuri, I would want to sing it, even though at the back of my head, I'm still humming a Beyonce song. So there are still so many things that are going on together in my head. And that hunger to be able to pull it off and not restrict myself in that boundary or that box was, I think, something that really pushed me. And I started off learning song by song, and with each song you were discovering something new. So whether it's an inversion of a chord, or it's about utilizing certain notes or chords when you are moving from one to another, they are very helpful techniques, I would say that. But for a person who is not really well aware of those techniques, it's just so much of wow, a lot of wow life.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I totally get that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So was it kind of, would you like sit down and listen to songs and kind of look for these moments and like try to figure out what they did and try to imitate it? Was that kind of how it went for you?
I think yes. I think gradually over the years, I developed a ear to understand arrangements and instrumentations, um, and then eventually also understand the nuances of it, appreciate what's been, what's gone behind a song, whether it's from a lyrics perspective. My initial years, because I am predominantly a singer, my initial years did focus on how, a person is formatting their voice, how are they emoting, how are they projecting, how are they restricting, how are they bringing emotions along with their technique. So all of that. But eventually, with the way when I started to perform, and when I started to perform, I wanted instruments to accompany me as a singer. And that's how the journey on the other end started. So when I picked up a guitar, or when I picked up the keyboard or the piano, that's how the entire process, sort of started to play. And one thing always led to another. That way, that discovery or the path was always interesting, sometimes convoluted, but interesting.
Yeah, and I think the kind of study that you've done of different vocal textures really reflects in your music. I remember when I first listened to July 19, I was really struck by the different vocal textures you used. Even like within, the same kind of falsetto range, you'd have this one phrase in like a bit more of a huskier tone, but then the next phrase with like a bit more, I don't want to say chest voicey, but a bit more out there. And these kind of
Hmm.
contrasts really, really made the song come alive. So, I mean, who am I to say all of this? Nobody, but it's just things that
No,
I
no,
noticed.
you
And
are the audience. I mean, and as I said, my songs are meant for people to interpret in their own way, and specifically July 19. Because I remember even when I was speaking with my producer, Monshu Parekh, at that point of time, the brief and one very important aspect of the entire production was that I want the song to be very easy on the ear to listen to, because it's like I want to, bring the canvas to them, but I want them to start painting their canvas with their thoughts and their emotions, and how are they perceiving the words that I say. So if I'm saying, what can I do to make you love me, and what can I do to make you stay? Who do you think of? What do you want to tell that person? It's just your own story. So audience, audience, audience.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get more onto that once we talk about your songs. But just going back to your childhood, you kind of touched on this, but I just want to see if there's anything else. You talked about working with your music teacher, and that one day in first grade where you have to perform out of nowhere. But in general, what sort of opportunities did you get musically at school?
So in my early days, there were not a lot of students in the classes. So, the sections were divided so that there was a lot of interaction with the student and the teacher. It's something that now I understand, but of course I didn't give any deaf ear to all of those concepts back in the day. But I do realize that all of that comes, and it's very, very helpful, because there were a handful of students to do everything in the school. So whether it's an oration contest, whether it's a collage contest, it's a painting contest, it's something related to anything, tech, something, it was these handful of people who were picked, and then they were motivated to go ahead and give your, best foot forward. That is the kind of, I think, the first few exploratory approach that is built right at the start, which has been extremely helpful. So yeah, I think it was definitely very helpful.
Yeah, and you talk about how you've kind of delved into a couple of these different arts, partly by not really by choice because there weren't enough people in your school, but I also know that you do quite a bit of dance, and I read that you're quite into Latin forms of dance. How do you think engaging with these different art forms has connected to the central art form that you pursue, which is music? Do you think doing visual art or dance, do you think that has contributed to the way you view music?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, it just opens a wider pool of perspectives. I mean, you bring the Latin dance form. That was, one dance to be a part of my bucket list that I also always wanted to learn. Because that's something you cannot see and learn. That's something that you need to be taught and learn. So that was one thing that was, really bugging me, that I need to get this out of my bucket list. And when I did, it is just this fresh sound. Oh my God. I mean, Latin music, and there's so much emotion, there's so much of passion, and there's so much of connection, even when you've not even moved an inch on the floor, even with just the way your body moves, or just the way, bodily, the lead connects with the follower, which goes on to say the male dancer connects with the female dancer, and with so much of utmost respect. I mean, that just amazed me, really. So it's just, music is interpretation and music is perspective, right? And if you've had multiple avenues to gain those perspectives, I think as a singer, as a songwriter specifically now, I think it has definitely aided my music a lot. And even as a singer, I mean, those nuances, when you feel is when you emote.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember speaking to Abhay Jodhparkar quite a while back now, around 2 years ago, but he's very into his art, and he was kind of telling me the same thing. So I was curious to see whether you shared that viewpoint, and you absolutely do. And speaking about your kind of musical pursuit, something that struck me with July 19 in particular is it has a very kind of strong jazzish kind of influence with the song. And going through some of the live clippings of places you've performed at, there's a lot of jazz in there. And in India, jazz is, I mean, I've never lived in India, so I can't speak with complete certainty, but it's a little bit niche from what I understand. So
Yeah.
how did you get into jazz?
Yeah. I mean, that's right to say that it is a niche, but I think jazz is such a beautiful, beautiful genre that, even in its distorted forms, it has found its ways and its path in all the mainstream songs. I mean, whether it's even Hindi or even such strong influence from jazz that I think, again, as a listener, I was always very attracted to this genre. And with due respect to people who do it with utmost sincerity, I mean, it was just my humble attempt at creating something which is a blend of, it's not 100% jazz, standard jazz,
Right.
but yes, something that was very, very close to my heart. And if I can say, like, in my head, it was, the song had to be a John Mayer meets Nora Jones.
Yeah, I think I saw you describe it as exactly that somewhere else as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely felt like that as well. And yeah, we talked about quite a bit about your childhood, and I'd like to kind of move forward. And after finishing high
Sure.
school, you went to Amity University, if I'm correct, to study
Yes.
biotechnology. And you were involved in music there as the president of the Music Society. But obviously, because you were studying biotechnology, you weren't pursuing music full on as your major. Was that ever a consideration for you? Like whether you should pursue or get a degree in something related to music?
Yeah, I mean, looking back today, given a chance, I would definitely pursue it, um, not in place of biotechnology, but maybe with it. However, I mean, it's everybody's personal journey. I mean, so that way, today when I look back, I think the most important aspect of me going to that college, the fact that it's humongous and there are so many colleges within that university, it just gave me, all of these opportunities to meet people, to interact with people. And again, as I was telling you, right, there were perspectives, there were their tastes, there were different kind of sounds. I met people who are incredible, who've been taught for 10, 12 years in Hindustani classical and sing phenomenal English. And all of that was I think it's just the environment was so healthy that meeting all of these people was just a learning experience in itself. And given the fact that I was fortunate enough to get these platforms, be the president of the cultural club, it was shortly, I think, for a couple of months, 11 to 12 months, I think, although they are not a couple of months by that standard. But I did have a show on the community radio for my college.
Wow.
And yeah, and my job there was to bring in musicians and just showcase them to my college. And it used to be so interesting because I used to meet them before the actual show. We used to jam together, and then we had segments in the show where I would ask the questions that you're sort of asking me at the moment. And yeah, and in all of that, we would do certain covers. If they have originals, they would do that. And the last segment was something that we used to do together.
Oh,
So
wow.
all of, yeah, it was so much fun. And then again, because I was responsible for that show, I used to also be very, very closely associated with the producer of the show. So something that I'm so behind the mic and in front of the mic, all those kinds of exposure were I think, very, very helpful in the journey.
Wait, I'm interested about this show because you were basically doing my job, I guess. Like, how did this opportunity come about? I didn't know about this. Clearly, I haven't
Yeah,
done my
I
research,
know.
but
I think I have done my bit of hiding all of this really well.
there, I think that's the one.
So, no, definitely. The thing was, my college had a community radio show, right? And again, it was because it was such a huge, huge university. And the mass media communication segment, that the entire college, they have really good infrastructure. And given the fact that I was very strongly involved in all the cultural activities, it just, sort of gave this idea to my teachers in the other departments to explore people who are actually artists and give them their platform, because probably the way they would do it would be a little different from the people who are already doing it. And I used to collaborate with the other students, as I said, as producers. So it's a win-win for all of us, because they learn perspectives from our end and we learn, a lot of information and nuances, processes, all of that from them.
So were these artists that you were bringing in people that were in the university or not necessarily?
They were in the university.
I see. So there,
Yeah.
even though you weren't necessarily in a music university, there were like a wide array of musicians there.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Because I think one really big achievement, if I would say, for myself was to get a group of people who are kick-ass musicians, prepare a good ensemble of a cappella, and go out there in all colleges of Delhi University and win and come back. And it used to be so, so rewarding, because prior to that, not a lot of people from my college or university, used to participate in these events. They used to, but it was not unified. So you know how a university has many colleges, so every college used to send their entry. But given the fact that I had a lot of connections across the university, we joined forces and we picked our people from across the colleges. That gave us a lot of strength in terms of, so much of vocal power, so much of information. Again, a lot of people were trained, a lot of people were doing Western music for a lot of, good duration of time. So all of that together powered and loved together. And again, in the Delhi circuit, because people used to come as individuals, as a force, Amity University was not recognized at that point of time. But when we came, and oh my God, how we did, because we were doing it for the first time. So we had zero inhibitions. We'll go there, we'll have fun, and we'll come back. Can you imagine, Nishad? We choreographed our performance, like
Oh,
a
wow.
pitch perfect act going on.
So you used to arrange your own kind of acapellas as well,
Yeah,
all by ear.
yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, we used to. I mean, I think I definitely enjoyed the process, and which has stayed with me. We used to, of course, select songs and then get together to deconstruct the song primarily. See what the artist has done on the song, and see what are the parts that we would want to, have in our song, or the parts that we want to deconstruct and then construct in another way.
Hmm.
So all of these discussions, again, you will understand, being a musician yourself, that those jamming sessions used to be so much of fun and so much of learnings.
Wow. Yeah, I can't imagine. That would have been wonderful. So going from your time at Amity, afterwards you pursued your master's degree in Italy,
Yeah,
in Bocconi University, if I'm correct.
yeah,
Hopefully I got the
yeah.
pronunciation right. And Italy is a very, very interesting place musically. I had the honor of going there for an international choir competition around 3 years
Oh, wow.
ago. Yeah. So yeah, I sang in Verona. But yeah, just listening to all of the music around me was just absolutely incredible. So what sort of musical exposures did you have once you got to Italy?
I think not from a musical aspect. Of course, I did go around, see people, how they are just in the streets doing their thing. It used to be such a motivation, just to see them doing their thing. And we traveled a lot when I was in Milan. So all the nearby countries, we did that, and we see that, one song, even if it's a cover, for example, "Shape of You" by Ed Sheeran, so many versions of the same song, even if they're doing the same way. It's just like a wave of creativity hitting you every time you see somebody doing, sort of these things. And my college had a grand piano right in the center of the hall. So, in between going to classes, and it's a master's in business administration, so not to undermine those courses, but you needed those few minutes of break to really get back to your game. Otherwise, it would get really, really tough. And so that cross-culture connection. Somebody's playing, someone's singing, if I'm playing, somebody join me when I'm singing. So I think it was just, I don't think I'll be able to pin down the musical aspects, but from an overall experience point of view, I think it was very immersive, if I could use that word. Because I remember I had gone for a vacation in Nice, France, and we ended up performing for a club, and where the other, yeah, and they were so welcoming. We were like,
Just
hey,
out of nowhere, like unplanned.
out of nowhere, we said,
Oh,
hey, we
wow.
also sing. Can we join? And they were like, hell yeah, come. And the entire club is singing Rolling in the Deep while I'm singing the same song with the guitar. And then I have somebody who's playing the piano, somebody who's on the Congo and trying to, give those beats on the. It was so much fun. So much fun.
Oh, wow, that must have been incredible. Yeah. Was that something? I mean, I know you were in the kind of live scene quite a lot, but was it a kind of environment where you could just walk in and just play what you wanted, or was it more planned generally?
Yeah, I mean, for this, it was definitely impromptu, but
Right, right.
otherwise, I think I am a person of spontaneity, but I do like to take calculated risks. So I will plan my stuff, but I will also allow myself to really freely navigate my emotions and my mental space as to where is the space that I want to go, in looking at, observing. Because again, when you're performing live, a major part of that performance or the success of the performance is dependent on the reaction of the audience. So if you can gauge
Yes.
that and mix it up with something that you really want to do, I think it's the best of both worlds then.
Do you think an unplanned kind of environment allows you to engage with the audience a bit more, or not
It,
necessarily?
as I said, I mean, I think I'm a person who would plan things, but still
Mhm.
allow, good amount
Right.
of space for some things that can happen naturally. So I
Mhm.
think from an experience point of view, naturality is something that is always, you know, more engaging. And even when I used to do, my songs that I used to prepare. So I used to prepare a set list, and I'm extremely fond of mashups that
Yeah.
have certain meanings, you know. So I'll give you an example. You must have heard of this song by Bruno Mars, "Just the Way You Are,"
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So the lyrics go about the face and the beauty and how you want the person just to be like that. And I generally club that song with Chaudhary Ka Chand, which is a Hindi song,
Oh.
which means "Jo bhi ho tum, khuda ki kasam lajawab ho." And it's similar, and it's so similar, and it just blends and it just conveys the meaning for me. But it's again, it's creative, but it has meaning in its delivery. So I used to do all of these kind of mashups. Sometimes I used to get a lot of requests from the audience. And to cater to that request, I used to also create a mashup from their requests.
Oh,
So of
wow.
course, I think, yeah, the fact that I never restricted myself from going, okay, I will only do A, B, C, D, and E. That just fueled my creativity also to much extent, because I'm on the stage in front of people and I need to do the songs. Can I do it?
Yeah, that's something I never noticed. Unfortunately, I don't speak a word of Hindi. I'm Tamil, so that's my mother tongue. That's the language I'm more familiar with. So yeah, I unfortunately don't understand any Hindi. Hopefully, something to do in the future. But I never noticed, because I've seen that you've done a lot of mashups, but I never knew there was kind of a thematic commonality.
Yeah.
Was that the case with the was it the Niti Mohan contest where you combined three songs?
Oh, yeah.
Was
Yeah,
there
yeah.
like a
That
thematic commonality there as
there
well?
was thematic yeah, yeah, it was there also.
Interesting.
Because if you closely listen to it, the song that I was covering, which was the actual contest,
Mhm.
was a song about Lord Krishna. And something that I sort of combined together. One was from the song Mere Dhol Na Sun, which is a calling. And another one by Kailash Kher, which is called Saiya, but it's so the male singer is singing from the female perspective, but it is in much ways dedicated to, the higher powers as well, because the song says how I have completely, just immersed myself in you. So those few connections were something that I always try to build, and I did also in that mashup.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, I never even thought that you could approach mashups in that way. I always thought of it as a kind of, a musical commonality that you might bridge together, but that's really, really interesting. And speaking of your musical creativity, I'd like to jump into your original compositions. And let's start with your first one, your first
Sure.
release, July 19, my personal favorite. I'm quite curious about the kind of dynamics of working on a personal story with a collaborator. Obviously, since it's a personal story, you might want to keep certain things to yourself. But at the same time, with the producer working on the track, you need him to understand what you want to communicate. So
Yeah.
did you approach this by sharing exactly, what happened or whatever the personal story was? Or did you just tell him, hey, these are the emotions I want to convey, and just roll with that?
Right, right. It's a great question again, Ishad, because I personally feel that the kind of connection that you can have or you can build with your producer will be directly proportional to the kind of emotions that you can bring in your song. So when you two people vibe, then that vibe will be translated. It's as
Mm,
simple as that. Because interestingly, I did, reach out to other few producers before going ahead with Himanshu for the project, and it just didn't seem to really, really work. And in
mm.
fact, I was working on a couple of songs that I had written earlier. So July 19th is my debut song, but it's not the song that I wrote first,
Right, right.
interestingly. And and when you're not able to communicate, it's as simple as being stuck in a relationship when you're not able to communicate. So, and that could really bring you down. So it's very important for you to really understand and vibe with your producer as a person. If that happens, music also happens, is what I believe first. So when I took July 19 and I played July 19 for Himanshu, he really, really liked it. But apart from that, I think he mentioned the fact that it's just so simple and so innocent, but so powerful at the same time. Just to be able to call out saying, "What can I do to make you stay?" And it's so relatable. We've been through that at some point of time in our life, whether it is with our romantic partner or whether it is with somebody who really we want to spend time with, even within our families or friends. So these conversations really helped him to get to the bottom of it. And again, necessarily sharing that incident or no, I think it's a very personal choice.
Mm.
But honestly, till date, nobody has ever been privy to the fact as to why is this called July 19? What happened on July 19?
Yeah, we will leave that to. I'll leave the investigation work to somebody else, but I'll stick to the music. And speaking of this song, this is something we kind of touched on just now, but something that I'm really interested in is the idea of sharing your own story while leaving room
Hmm.
for the audience to add their own interpretation. And it kind of seems like you had this balance in mind, because you say that it's written in a romantic context, but it can be interpreted in a non-romantic context as well. So were there things you did to ensure that the song could be relatable on a wider scale and that it could be
Yeah.
enjoyed in a non-romantic context as well?
Yeah, yeah. No, we intentionally kept away from a lot of elements in the song that could make it or give it a lot of romantic feel.
Mm,
We did consciously do that. We wanted the production to be minimal anyhow, but we
mm.
still kept away from even arrangements that would sound too love oriented,
What
if I
exactly
can
do you
call
mean
it
by
that
that?
way.
Sorry to
So,
interrupt.
how your emotions can be interpreted by the way you play your music, right? So when we are playing more open sounds, when we are playing less, again, minimalistic production, but more of open sounds, long phrases, that would invite you to think and collaborate with me in certain manner. However, if I'm playing or arranging my piano or my guitar in a way where it is leading your thoughts instead of, going hand to hand, then I will basically lead you to where your emotions and what I want you to think.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah. I've heard kind of Jacob Collier talking about this balance, and it's something that he's talked about a lot in his interviews. And yeah, if you look at his lyrics, it's really broad and general, and it really leaves room for the listener to add their own
Right.
interpretation. And yeah, since I heard those interviews, I kind of became interested in the idea, and it's interesting to hear that you really considered that as well. Sticking with this song, one thing that I found intriguing is that when you were thanking all of the people that were involved in the making of this track on social media, there was one person that you thanked that, at least as far as I understand, was not directly involved in the song. And the person I'm referring to is your vocal coach, Shannon Donald. So, what
Yeah.
sort of role, directly or indirectly, did she play in the song?
Yeah, no, I share an incredible bond with my vocal coach. So as now you know that I'm not theoretically coming from a background where I am, trained myself. I've trained myself in music. However, I did know that I would definitely would want to work on the quality of my singing. That's how I went ahead with, singing and training with the vocal coach. And when I was doing that, she's so motivating, and she said, Shweta, why don't you so as now you know, right, I'm into mashups. I'll create a space where I can improvise and all of that. So she saw all of those traits in me, and whenever she asked me about my original music, I said, no, I don't think I can do it. No, I don't think I can't create something. I can work on something that's already existing, but I can't create music. And so, very slyly, she did a couple of exercises with me where she asked me to sing over a karaoke track or a piano track, where she said, you don't have to do the original melody. I want you to improvise. So, in my head, I was doing what I already knew. But in her head, she was also making me feel comfortable with creating something that does not exist. So that was one really, really big push in terms of writing my own songs. But when you write your own songs, there are two aspects to it. One is the melody, one is the lyrics. And a lot of people I know, they do struggle in the lyrics part of it. And so she again did certain exercises with me where she said, once you get a hang of, just expressing yourself, even if it is just journaling, you'll not really find it difficult to put words to your thoughts, correct? Because anyhow, we are expressive people. Even right now, for the past 1 hour, I have been expressing whatever I feel without a script. So when you are naturally that person, why can't you put it to other streams as well? And that made sense to me. That made really it was like, the penny just dropped in my head. So that push, I think, was the most incredible thing that could have happened right before COVID happened to me, because I had just gotten into that groove, and then the entire world shut down, which gave me a lot of time to still continue that groove and explore whether do I like it? Do I like making music? Do I like writing? Am I comfortable with sharing? And all of these thoughts.
You mentioned journaling. Was that something you consciously either picked up yourself or were pushed to pick up in order to develop your lyric writing skills?
Yeah, so yeah, that's a great observation, Nishad. And I did consciously because I wanted to pen out my feelings. I feel I am an impulsive writer, so I can train myself to write about concepts that you throw at me. However, I personally feel that my best comes when I strongly feel it. So with July 19, because we're talking about it, I wrote two sessions, and both those sessions were only 5 minutes long. They were 2 months apart, but they were only for 5 minutes. Similarly, for Home, and I think I've really talked about that a lot. Home happened in a ride when I was coming back from the airport to the place I stay. It was that 5 minutes of outburst.
So yeah, you brought up Home. So let's move on to that. And something that I find really interesting about this song is that thematically it's kind of a sad song. The song talks about how you miss home, and I guess there's a little bit of that longing feeling. But if you listen to it genre-wise, it's quite pop-like. And like by the end, you can groove to it. It doesn't necessarily feel like this sad, sobering song. It has a groove to it, and you can kind of, I wouldn't go as far to say it's a dance song, but like, there's a good kind of solid beat to it and something that we can groove to. So there's this kind of contrast here going on, at least to me. So was this a kind of conscious choice, or did it just kind of turn out like that? How did that happen?
That was the result of my conversations with Himanshu. And so generally what we do is we try to get the that we love in a production or in a song that would resonate with the main emotion of the song. So the main riffs that you hear, whether it's on the nylon guitar or the piano sections, those were the main parts basically that constitute of the main soul of the song from an arrangement point of view, right? And when all of that came together, Himanshu just in a text, is this a sad song? And I said, not necessarily. It's not a sad song. It's just a song that tells you that you're moving out of your comfort zone willingly. And so you're missing it. But because you're doing it willingly, you have to do it on your own. It just summarizes that way. And he said, got it. And I was like, okay, what was that all about? And then a couple of days later, I asked him, so where are we on the track? And he's like, so I've already done it days back. But I don't know whether I should send it to you or not. And I was like, what are you saying? Just send it to me. He's like, either you will love it and love it to the core, or you will hate it. There's nothing in between. So I was like, okay, send it off. And then I heard it. And the beat, when it comes in, I didn't expect it. And I spent good 3 days hating it. I wanted and I tried every single bit to hate it. And I couldn't. There was all possible reason, logic, everything that I could associate that song with, and I just couldn't hate it. And I knew that this is meant for it.
So it was completely different from the kind of image you had of the song initially.
Yeah, because generally from a mood and emotion point of view, I know what I want, but from a groove and beat point of view is where I rely heavily on Himanshu, and that's the kind of expertise that he brings on the table, right?
Right.
Because he is with a band, and I mean their music is incredible.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. And yeah, speaking about the kind of message or theme of this song, as part of the promotion for this song, you asked people around you what they felt home meant to them. And I was
yeah.
kind of curious to hear your take on, given that this is your song. What is home to you in this song? Is it the physical building, or is it something more?
I think that's I will give you a couple of perspectives and I will let you choose what you think means home to me.
Fair enough.
But I have been out of my hometown for about 12 years now. And so going back again, coming to the place where so for me in my head, workplace and your place where you've been born, raised and brought up, they are different. They've always been different and segregated, right? And that's actually the kind of differentiation that I've tried to achieve, because when you're at home, you're lazy. But when you want to work, you want to get into that group. So that way, especially after the lockdown, when I stepped out of the home, out of my home, it just felt uncomfortable. I wanted to do that because I wanted to go start my music, do, sessions with my producer and all of those things. But it just was a feeling I couldn't shake off. And I did not know what it was. Generally, you know how you step, and I'm a person who sometimes can be forgetful. So I was stepping out of the house and I was like, have I like not a phone or my license, or what is it? What is this thing that I'm constantly feeling? Whatever. And I was telling my father that I'm gonna call you from the airport because I'm 100% sure I'm leaving something behind. And when I said that, it just made sense to me that I am leaving something behind. So it might not be the physical aspect of me being in my room or just the comfort that comes in when you are with the people that you love, or the people that you want to stay with. So for me, it was my parents. But definitely, I will resonate if tomorrow, if I have a family, if I of my own, I will resonate the same feeling with them as well.
So can home be plural
Of
for
course,
you? Yeah.
of course. Home is also my art for that matter, because I feel comfortable expressing myself. It could be my instrument, it could be someone's canvas, it could be someone's kitchen for that matter.
Yeah, no, it's
When
interesting
they
to,
just want
sorry.
to declutter themselves and just do something and express and just create something.
Yeah, and it was interesting to hear in that video so many different perspectives on what home is. And it kind of broadened my kind of viewpoint on what the concept of home is. So yeah, and you kind of did that right now with your response as well. Something else that was quite interesting about the promotion of the song was the way you announced it. It was a WhatsApp conversation between yourself and the producer of the song, Kimon Shu. Was this a real conversation, or was it just a kind of marketing thing?
So, of course, from a point of view of what went out finally was trims and something that we tried to achieve.
Right.
But that was exactly the story. The
Oh,
the
really?
idea to yeah, the idea to put this out, that promotional video, and it being the first teaser of the song, that idea came to me because it was the real story. And as I said, something that's natural will definitely resonate with people. I'm a person who's comfortable sharing a lot of my stories with the people because they are actually the reason why they made me feel comfortable about sharing. So it's just me responding to that. And again, as I said, I landed right on the Bombay airport. I landed at the airport, and I had this feeling, and I took a ride back to my place, and I was just feeling weird. And in that moment of those outbursts, 5, 10 minutes, I wrote in a poem sort of a manner whatever I was feeling, and I did that. At a couple of days later, because of course I gave some time to settle in because I had come from after the lockdown and stuff. So when that happened, I settled in and I went back to what I had written. I felt I really need to put melody to it because it's so genuine.
Mm.
It's a story I want to share. And I, just casually put some melodies and some tunes on, and that was just one verse, pre-chorus, and chorus. And I sent it off to Himanshu that, I've been, and he knew that I'm feeling that way because the moment I landed, he said, okay, great, welcome. And I said, yeah, I'll be meeting you soon because that's exactly why I had come to Bombay.
Oh, right.
So I sent it to him and he's like, uh, I'll check it out. I'm in a session right now. I'll check it
Mm.
out. And the next morning when he heard it and he said it's great, I asked him, have you stepped out of your house for something that you want to do? And he said, no, but I know how it feels to be on the other side when people go and you're left at home. And it
Interesting.
was such a great, interesting conversation because even though we're talking about the same thing of somebody stepping out of their houses, it's like, whether you're on, when you're traveling, whether you're on the ride or whether you're on the road. It's just so amazing to see that.
It's two different perspectives on the same thing.
Yeah. So
Wow,
it
that's
actually happened
beautiful.
that
Yeah.
way. And so I just wanted to, bring out the same emotion and the same thing to the audience as well.
That's amazing. So yeah, we've talked about your journey thus far and the two amazing songs that you've put out. And I'm sure everybody listening is looking forward to know what's next for you. What can we expect from you in the next few months or years?
Right. So the next song that will be coming out soon will be the song that I wrote first. The first
Oh,
ever song that came out of Shweta Srivastava as a singer-songwriter.
so
That
the
is the
real
song that will
debut.
be coming out. Mm. Yeah, and I'm really, really excited about it because, again, this was also the song that I had sung and performed extensively during the lockdown.
Hmm.
I got that confidence of putting out my music from this song. And the way I used to perform is not the way how I will present. So
Mm.
that contrast is something that I'm really, really excited about because at one point of time when I used to go lives and also, when I used to go on other people's lives, there used to be people from my followers community who used to join and say, we want to listen to Saturn. And for a person, Saturn is the name of the song,
Yeah.
for a person who's yet, figuring it out, trying to understand whether she should, come out with their music or no. And they receive messages on live, people remembering the song, one of your own compositions, and asking for it. It's like, that's all you need.
Oh, that's wonderful. So yeah, we've spoken about your journey, and of course, though, everybody listening knows you as a fantastic singer. Well, also a fantastic songwriter, but from a presentation point of view, a fantastic singer. And I think they would be very happy if they managed to hear a few tunes from you, if that's okay.
So, what would you like to listen to?
We have to start off with your debut song, at least your
Amazing.
official debut song, not your actual
My
debut
official
song.
debut song. I've actually not sung this one in a while. Good too. And the version that you will hear is the version how it was composed. We walk round the clock to make ends meet in the struggle of life. How can we keep us alive the way we were when you first said to rise on me at the start of July 19. So tell me, what can I do? What can I do to make you love me? What can I do? What can I do to make you stay? Ooh, Yay!
Ooh, that's amazing. I still,
Thank
yeah,
you.
just the kind of bounce the song has and the kind of lilting, waltzy kind of feel. Yeah, it's brilliant. Second song I'd like to ask for. I know I'm giving these off the cuff and you're completely not prepared for any of these. So if it's difficult, that's absolutely no problem. But you had put a little snippet of Arzian, and that's one of my favorite songs. If it's possible, I would love to hear a bit more of Arzian.
Sure, sure. I actually love that song myself, and I mean, it's just, and interestingly, that was also one of the songs that I performed when I was in, I think, 11th or 12th, which was the last few years of my college, junior high. And yeah, it brings me really good memories, this song.
चेहरे पे लिख के लाया तुमसे क्या मांगूं मैं तुम खुद ही समझ लो
Beautiful. All right. So I always end all of my episodes with the same question. And that one question is, what's on your playlist right now?
Oh, there are so many songs actually. I'm listening to the entire album, Silk Sonic, because I just feel there's so much to learn from it. So intensely rich. I mean, of course, not to say that it's fun. It's one of the most fun albums. And personally, I've never been, that person who would go and play the entire album. I'll sort of pick my songs and then, but oh my God, this album. Yeah, so that's on my top list these days.
Anything else in
There are
particular?
a lot of songs which I generally listen to. They are my go-to songs. A lot of the songs which are also a part of, the singing routine that I sing. So you'll find a variety in that format. There are opera songs, theatrical songs like Think of Me and Hamilton, a lot of those songs as well. But on the other end, as I said, you'll find songs like Bruno Mars, there's Adele, there's a lot of Justin Timberlake, there's a lot of Beyonce for that matter. So it's just mix. In terms of Hindi, also, I have started to develop. So the Yellow Diary is my favorite band. How do I explain my love for the songs? Oh my God.
By collaborating with one of its members.
Wow. Bullseye on that one. I think what an experience. But yeah, I just, there's a variety of songs.
It's like, in your head, you're building this library of sounds, of ways how you can sound, of different textures. Just this morning, my producer sent me this reel where this girl was singing Talking to the Moon, and she goes talking to the moon, and then she takes that in a higher octave. So she reaches about what, G6.
Oh gosh. Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, because for Saturn, we are stacking a lot of vocals in the background. There are a lot of songs that will be coming up. I'm also planning for my Hindi debut because, of course,
wow.
we are in, and Hindi songs are a great market. But more so because I write English music, but I'm not an English singer. So that way I also want so many more sides of my personality, my singing personality, or as a vocalist. So a lot of stuff.
Perfect. All right. So I think we'll finish this episode off there. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you to the listeners for tuning in. Make sure to go and check out Shweta's music and her social media. I'll leave all of the relevant links in the description below. Thank you so much once again for your time.
It was lovely speaking to you. I think I had the most fun 1 hour interacting with you, going down the memory lane and whatnot. So thank you.
Well, that was Shweta Srivastava on our 15th episode of the Indoencers Podcast. And thank you to everyone that has tuned in. You can find us at the Indoencers, spelled THEINDOENCERS, on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Or you can use the links in the description. Likewise, you can find our homepage at theindoencers.wordpress.com or through the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the Indoencers Podcast on your favorite podcasting platform. Thank you once again, and we'll see you next time.